Before hostilities end, Edward Pritchard will join Parliament's side. But when civil war breaks out, his instincts as an officer of the Crown impel him to take up arms for the King. In the middle of the campaign, he'll have a very special dinner guest here at Llancaich Fawr. King Charles himself.
It's counterintuitive for us today who think of ourselves as a socialist, left-wing, Republican-esque sort of place. In fact, we were thoroughbred royalists. The Welsh actually liked their king, King Charles. Lots of places in England, of course, felt that he was doing something seriously wrong with the government of the whole country, with the government of the church. There are elements of that in Wales, yes, but in fact they see King Charles as their king. Kingship is something that the Welsh have taken on board as their own since the Tudor period. What they like even more, I think, is their church. The Church of England, ironically, is very much the Church of Wales in this period. The Church of Wales, which has been thoroughly Cymricised. It's in their own language. Their sermons, their liturgy, their faith is truly Welsh. Now, Charles, of course, represents the head of that church. Parliament looks like it's challenging that church. It wants to bring in more of a Puritan type of worship.
Charles's recruiting sergeants are helped further by the way Parliament talks about the Welsh. Simple, ignorant, stupid, simply following the king because they know no better.
Do you really want to fight and die for a bunch of people who are calling you an idiot?
The Welsh aren't idiots, but they have backed the losing side. By 1646, the king is in prison, and the outcome seems to be settled. Well, not quite.
After the fighting is stopped, we get a battle over what was the war about. And what does victory mean for the parliamentarians? Does it mean that you have the king as a mere figurehead with a radically reformed church? Wales in particular gets very, very worried and jittery about what they see emerging out of Parliament. Radical voices calling for the complete transformation of their beloved church into something that they simply couldn't recognise anymore.
Cromwell's radicalism is alarming his own supporters. The mayor of Pembroke is one of them. He's John Poyer, a merchant, just the kind of person who's sympathetic to Puritanism. Surrounded on all sides by royalists, he's held the castle for Parliament. But now he's having second thoughts.
Poyer's wondering, I think, what he's fought for. He also has an added grievance with Parliament. They aren't paying him what he feels that he's been owed for standing on their side when he was this island of parliamentarianism.
Pembroke becomes a springboard for a renewal of the war. Supporters of the king rise up across the whole of Britain. This time, Poyer is fighting against Parliament. He's been promised that royalist reinforcements are marching across the country to be with him.
What does come his way, however, unfortunately for him, is Oliver Cromwell and the New Model Army, who sweep through South Wales, defeating royalist forces as they go, principally in the Battle of St Fagans, and end up outside these walls, where they raise a siege. They don't really have the firepower to demolish the place, and for several weeks, Cromwell is camped outside here with perhaps 6,000 men. Poyer and his associates are inside with a few hundred.
From May until July of 1648, the castle holds firm under the siege. In the end, Cromwell brings up the biggest guns he has to threaten the medieval ramparts. The game is up. With two other rebels who've been at his side, Rowland Larne and Rice Powell, Poyer surrenders himself to Puritan justice.
They are taken before a court-martial and tried. They are found guilty of treason, all three of them. They plead for their lives. And the Council of State, which is the body effectively in charge of the country at this time, agree that justice will be served if only one of them dies. And so they decide to draw lots. In fact, they have a child choose the lots for them. On 2 pieces of paper are written life given of God, and the other is blank. And Poya is the one that pulls the blank sheet of paper out from the child's hand, and she asks him, "Did I do well?" And he looks down at the child and says, "Yes, you have done very well."
Poya faces the firing squad in April 1649, and Wales's resistance to Parliament dies with him. But from Pembroke to here in Caerphilly, Oliver Cromwell doesn't feel secure in the land of his fathers quite yet.
He's known as God's Englishman, some might even call him God's Welshman, but Cromwell, after winning the Civil War, in which Caerphilly Castle plays a very small part, orders his army to slight the castle. And the damage they cause may well be responsible for the famous leaning of the southeast tower. Forget Pisa with its 4% drift, Caerphilly can boast fully 10%. It's worth having a look if you have the inclination.
Cromwell is determined to get the Welsh to take Puritanism seriously. His parliament passes an act for the propagation of the gospel in benighted Wales. Scores of mainstream Anglican clergy are thrown out of their churches, replaced by enthusiasts for the new cause. But in the end, the calls for a Puritan Wales will fall on deaf ears. The monarchy is restored, and the gentry are free to behave more and more like their English counterparts. As a new century dawns, the distance between them and the Welsh-speaking Werin Bobol seems greater than ever. Perhaps that's why the Welsh countryside is seen as a backwater, stagnating economically, lacking the vitality of urban life which develops in England in the 1700s. It's a picture that Nia Powell, an expert in the agriculture of the time, is keen to challenge.
Quite often Wales is described as an impoverished country of subsistence farmers. Well, that's not true at all. What you find in the uplands in particular are entrepreneurial farmers, if you like. And I think that's where the real wealth of Wales lay.
Well, that's an intriguing thought, because I've grown up with the notion, obviously the wrong one, that it's the farms down on the valley floor which are sort of making the money, and it's the poor people at the top. That's wrong, is it?
Well, I think it's quite interesting. If you look at people's wills, their wealth at death, the average wealth of a yeoman in Carnarvonshire before 1700 was £26. If you look at the average for a very upland parish, Beddgelert, where Snowdon lies, the average was £99. Now, that's a colossal difference.
Are you saying there's much more money to be made on the uplands than down here on the valley floor?
Well, that's the surprising thing, really.
These upland cattle farmers, with their nose for business, sense a gap in the market for a new product.
From around 1715 onwards, sheep, the numbers of sheep suddenly start to increase. It may be because of the development of the woolen industry, but in Snowdonia, the sheep that are noted by travellers weren't wool producers. Many of them were black sheep, and black wool wasn't really favoured for weaving, but they were noted for the sweetness of their meat.
The strength of the rural economy is beginning to support business growth in urban Wales.
Places like Denbigh that produced far, far more gloves than were ever needed in the whole of Denbighshire. Wrexham, for instance, which was the biggest town in Wales.
Wrexham hosts a weekly market where trade between England and Wales flourishes.
Short-haul drovers, the people who brought animals to the market, meeting drovers from over the border who took them down to places like Northampton to fatten up. London butchers liked what were called Welsh runts. Runts because they were small, but they fattened very quickly, and their meat was considered to be very tender and very good to eat.
Changing tastes are one thing, but the real revolution for ordinary Welsh people is not to do with farming, and it comes down south.
Something here is on the move. It's gathering pace, and it's a remarkable phenomenon. And it's driven by two dynamic forces, religion and education, and led by two dynamic people, Griffith Jones and Bridget Bevan. And together, they help to make Wales one of the most literate countries in the world.
Griffith Jones is the rector of Llanddowror near St Clair's. His idea is to set up a school in one village, get the people to teach each other to read, and then move on or circulate to a neighbouring hamlet.
You teach your friend here to read, he teaches somebody else to read, and then somebody else, on it goes and on it goes.
And the key thing is, they're doing all this in the only language that 9 out of every 10 people understand, Welsh. Before long, these circulating schools are active in huge numbers.
3,495 schools had been set up.
How many? 3,495? That's an amazing number.
When Griffith Jones dies, his wealthy benefactor, Bridget Bevan, carries on with the work. And by then, their schools are famous. A report on them reaches Catherine the Great in Russia.
When you consider the raw figures, they are astounding. Half the population of Wales learns to read in these travelling schools. It is a towering achievement. And what is the first thing that most people want to read? It is the Bible. For the first time, they're able to study the gospel message for themselves. And the effect of that, in this sleepy Carmarthenshire countryside and much further afield, is electrifying.
It's what we call the Methodist Revival. Dynamic preachers like Howell Harris and Daniel Rowland draw thousands to meetings in the open countryside. Methodism begins as a movement within the Anglican Church, but before long its converts are breaking away to build their own places of worship.
1740, that's very significant because it makes this chapel, this cause, one of the earliest Methodist causes in this part of Wales. So let's have a look inside. Diolch yn fawr, Llew.
One of the features of nonconformist denominations like Methodism is fervent hymn singing. The revival boasts probably the greatest hymn writer of them all, William Williams Pantycelyn. His words still ring out around our rugby stadiums today.
This old chapel, in the heart of the countryside, is part of an immense force which transforms life in Wales. The Methodist preachers who address this congregation revitalise the Christian faith in this country. They make it a central feature of people's lives. And while that experience is alien to many people today, it is certainly part of my family's story, and many other families too, and it is without question one of the most important chapters in the story of Wales. Och chi'n sôn am Morgan Rhys te, Llew, a wi'n mynd I ofyn I chi nawr.
Llew Jones has led the singing in this chapel for more than half a century. With a little persuasion, he's agreed to sing for me the words of Morgan Rhys, another great local hymn writer from those days of the revival.
Dewch hyn ac ieng dewch at Iesu mae'n llawn bryd.
So we've reached a significant moment in our unfolding story of Wales. For the first time, we can hear an echo of our past, handed directly from generation to generation through people's memory and experience. This chapter in our story began with the coming of a new claimant to the English throne, descended from a Welsh family. The Acts of Union passed by his son give the Welsh gentry equality with their English counterparts, but condemn ordinary people to justice in a language they don't understand. It's the Welsh Bible which binds them closer to the crown and to its church. So when civil war breaks out, a Puritan parliament can't persuade them to join its religious revolution. It's the remarkable campaign to teach ordinary people to read that prepares the ground for a fervent new form of Christianity. The Welsh embrace it as their own, just as a new rural economy promises a more prosperous future.
250 years after Henry Tudor marches through Wales on his way to claim the crown of England, the drovers are also on the move, taking their livestock to market in London. That coupling of England and Wales is now a reality. But things are changing. Wales is going to be transformed and become a global leader in the shaping of a very modern world. The Open University has produced a free booklet for you to learn more about the history of the people of Wales. You can call 0845 366 0253 or go to bbc.co.uk.